Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good evening. Today it's Wednesday, December 13th at 9:17 p.m. I decided to go live for about an hour, and I'll go live again on Friday. When we last spoke, I had started on a nestJs and React front-end application, and I was diving into all of the nestJs pieces. Let's close everything here, close all tabs. So since then, I've put in quite a bit of work. I won't say quite, but a bit of work. So using CptWoozle, we've added a few packages, and I'll have to go through and update all of that. So we've added our class transformer. For those who don't remember from last time, the class transformer is the thing that allows us to transform aspects of our models. We have our class validator. We added in the reflect metadata. I think that was already there. And sequelize TypeScript. So while I'm here, I might as well just go ahead and add those into the tools that we had made. Let's go ahead and add it to the README documentation so that people can access it if they want. Let's close you. Nope, that's actually what I wanted to keep open. Let's just do the Markdown editor by itself. So on the back end now, we've added sequelized. We're going to add in bcrypt. Let's add in put the note for ESLint plugin unused imports. And I should probably create links to all of these unused imports. Let's use sequelize TypeScript. Put that in here. Class transformer and class validator. Let's go ahead and get links to all of those things that we have them. Let's do sequelize. Yeah. Let's do sequelize. Yeah, let's do sequelized. You are going to be. How can we put a link in here? All right, I guess we'll do it this way. Yeah. That. And then we'll put you as parentheses here. Yeah. Wait. That's not right, is it? Is it just this? No, I think it's this. Yeah. So let's add links to everything else. So there's our link to sequelize. Let's MySQL to, yeah. So we'll just put links to everything, and then we'll kind of continue down our journey. In the meantime, I'll kind of walk through some of the changes that I've made. So with sequelize, integrating the two, there's a really great tutorial that I found. There is, what is it, nestJs with sequelize TypeScript. See if I can find his stuff. This isn't it. Let me see if I can find it. User login, yeah, user model, extends model user. Um, yeah. So there's a really great article that I found. Dev community, is this it? I think this might be it. I think, nope, it's not. I'm gonna have to go through my history and take a look. Um, it was, yeah, here it is. This article right here. Um, it's really kind of handy and neat. We'll interrupt my adding of things. This was really handy for me, and weirdly enough, you can actually hit up. Um, you can actually hit up um, Chat GPT and kind of use as an example too. But this one was pretty handy, so I'm going to put this in my README as well as useful links. So let's go over here. There's our backend, our database structure, and I'll put it down here as what type of tag do we want to use? Let's do a 3. Let's do useful links. Put you here, put you here, and the name of this article is what? nestJs with SQLize ORM example. It's pretty cool. So start here. So yeah, no, it's really useful, and it's what I use to kind of help create that the thing that I was going for. We also included .env, but yeah, this guy's article is really useful. I'll put a link to it in the README so that people can have access to it, and then I'll put it up on my on my Twitch stream as well. Let's go ahead and finish adding all the rest of these packages, and this is again just so that people coming through later on can have can see all the things. Let's do .env, npm. Yeah, let's do bcrypt. That one. Let's also look for the ESLint plugin imports. Now that one was really nice to have too. It allows me to kind of, every time I save, it goes ahead and cleans that up. Bcrypt. And so we'll link all of these. Let's actually close you down. Since I've already written them all down, let's just go this way. Let's do block here, block here, block, 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 block. Yeah, this way I'll have it all. Let's do the ESLint imports. Let's do the .env. So we have you, the bcrypt. Let's do the SQLize TypeScript. SQLize TypeScript. Yep. There it is. Yep, here's the package. It's pretty neat. What's going on here? There it is. SQLize-TypeScript. And then we'll do one for class transformer. Why are you a different color? And then one for npm class transformer and class validator. Yep, I'll grab you. And then class validator. Yep, here we are. Yep, class validator. All right, so there are our additional pieces that we added. And under here we have our useful links, so that people wanting to, useful links. That's a really good one. Let's add the one for authentication. nestJs authentication, nestJs authentication. And I guess we should actually put a link to nestJs. Documentation. So anyway, so let's kind of go over the different pieces that I added. Aside from a bunch of additional libraries, we come over here to our main TS. And now to allow for validation, and that validation does the following. It will, when we define certain properties in a class, such as user model, we have here that it's column string, and actually that's not the best example. This is much better. Here in our user login class, this is what the object should look like when someone is attempting to log in and or register for the site. We want to transform the email, we want to make sure it is an email, and we want to do a non-empty check. And to make sure that those are validated, when a person makes a request, we can use the app.use global pipes new validation pipe. So that's a really great tool for people who are trying to figure out, like, how can I make sure that this is validated? And I think this is a really good, useful tool for that. From there are a couple different things that I needed to set up. One for SQLize to work. You have to add in our SQLize module, sorry. You have to select your dialect, your host, and your port, username, password, email, and the database you want to use. And this is where .env comes into place. Now SQLize has its own setup for that, and that's to use the config module. And you tell it to grab the config module. You pull it in here with config module.root, and then you can use your .env file and use it that way. After that, we have our JSON Web Token module. You need to make sure that you include @nestJWT, and that's talked about in the authentication article that I have put in the README file. And for that, you again have to say JWT module.register. I set it to global equal to true, and I used a secret that I put in my environmental file. Now your environmental file won't be added to GitHub, but we can always, it's here, and let's double check our git ignore. I don't see it added, so let's go ahead and add it. So logs ignore environmental file. So let's go ahead and add that to the things that we're ignoring here. And on this level as well, we want to ignore /backend/.env. And we'll do the same thing for the front end, /frontend/.env if we need to create one there. So those are the changes to our JWT module. Now we've created a whole bunch of the user pieces that go along with it as well. I created a basic user controller here that allows for you to register and for you to log in. Now it accepts the user login model that I created over here. I apologize, that's right, this one. So you have to pass in an email address and a password. We do make sure that's a valid email. And then our user controller takes that, and we return our user with a JWT model. Now, we don't want to return the full user object. We only really want to return the user ID, the email address, and the JSON web token. And so to kind of keep that cleaned up, I use this user with JWT model. And I probably should just do this, extends user. But I wanted to keep it separate so that it only included these items here. So we just want email, user, and the JSON web token. And now TypeScript doesn't allow for overloading, so I'm going this particular route, but if someone has another idea, I'd be happy to hear it. And it just calls fairly simple. It uses our user service to create a user based upon this, and I've tested this already. Our login works the same. So let's go ahead and take a look at our service. Now our service uses the model from our user model, and let's take a quick look at that while we're here. So this uses our SQLized TypeScript, and I, like I mentioned before, specifically have it so that certain things are going to take a GUID or UUID. So here's our base user class here. We have our columns with our types, our default value. You don't have to go this particular route and do all of that, but I did. Here's an example of a much simpler layout for a column. You just say column password string, an email string. But I very specifically wanted to catch a lot of different scenarios. So one, I wanted to only allow for UUID, and then I have it so that it sets the default value to the built-in UUID v4 function in SQLize. I don't know if anyone would ever know that off the top of their head. We wouldn't allow for null, and it is the primary key. Now, email is going to be similar. We do want to have its data type set to string. We don't want to allow for null, but we do want to force the person to have a unique value here, and we do want to validate it that it's an email. Now we do already do a validation on the controller level, so when the object that is sent in is a user login, we want to capture it there, but I added another layer on the user model just in case. I added two other things. Aside from password, we have our validate password, and this is going to take the password when a person, as just kind of a general function, and I'll get to it in service, you'll see it used. We want to be able to validate the password that's sent in, so we just compare it to the password. And then lastly, I added a before create. This will, and we'll do one when we do an update as well, but this is just for the creation. This is the before the create function. So it will run before a user object is created. We'll get the password, we'll encrypt it, and then, that way it'll be saved as an encrypted password. There's been so many examples all across the news and in many organizations where they just leave passwords in plain text. And so right off the bat, you want to try to nip that in the bud if you can and you have the knowledge to do so. I also wanted to put this here because I felt like it was easier to keep all of this encryption in one spot. And this will probably be one of the few things that we really need to worry about encrypting in this particular application. Now, if you're dealing with, say, credit card information, there's a whole slew of things that you would need to go over. Give me 1 second. Let me respond to this. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the user service. Our user service over here, we have it inject our user model. And here's our create function. Now, there are a bunch of other ways that we could have, or I could have done this. I have it create a new user based upon the user data. And then again, it just translates one-to-one, which is really nice. I must admit, I didn't have to write anything custom in here. As you see, there's no constructor whatsoever. I can literally just say new user and drop in the user data. And then from there, I can do the await on user.save. Now, there are, again, multiple ways to handle this. I did this with a try catch, but other people would say, you know, you could use the built-in promise functionality, and you totally can. You do not have to do this particular approach whatsoever. But you do also have the potential of running into like promise hell, as it's called. So you have a dot then a dot then, and then inside that another promise, and then a dot then, and so forth and so on. So we get, you know, the new user is here. We are going ahead and creating the user when we do this. So it's going to give us the UUID. Then we create the user based upon the user ID, and then we encrypt it. But let's double check everything just in case. User.user ID. So that'll save us. And then we'll take that payload for user ID, keep it, create a DWT token, and again, the authentication system, the authentication documentation that I dropped is pretty useful for that. All you have to do is use the JWT service here, include the service, and then you can just tell it to create a token based upon that by saying sign async and then dropping in whatever you want. And the payload is just an object that includes whatever properties you want to include. I could have included more, but I'm just keeping it pretty simple here. And then I returned that new user model, and for that I did create a constructor, like I said before, where I pass in the user object and the JWT token. For the login, it's going to be something similar. This is just kind of spread out a bit because of the linter. We're going to take the user data, which is going to be email and password, nest, and the validation commands that we've put in. And I call them commands, but I guess lines of code right here will automatically capture or block anything where they don't have the email address and the password. We'll again attempt to, using the pre-existing CptWoozle library, go ahead and find a user based upon their email. And again, I'm using a try catch here so that we don't kind of fall into promise hell, though it's not necessarily that deep in this instance. We grab the user, and if they're not found, we throw an exception unable to find user. And again, this is something that's nicely built into Nest. If we then attempt to validate the password and it's incorrect, we can say incorrect username and password. We then go ahead and, similar to above, create a payload that is then going to be turned into a JSON web token, and we return that. Otherwise, we return bad request. And the rest of the behavior is very, very similar to what we saw before with nestJs. The one difference, because we're using CptWoozle, is we say CptWoozle module for feature and then drop in the user model that we're using. I imagine when we use more than just this, we'll need to change. But for right now, that's all that we have. The other thing that is new that I didn't incorporate the last time I used Nest was an auth guard. Now, this is a fairly simple authorization guard. Normally, what I would probably do is, if we're going to incorporate some type of functionality that does roles, and that's roles not to eat, but as in user roles. You would actually probably implement some type of role auth guard that would make sure that before a person could access a certain endpoint, they have the role. And at that point, we'd need to make our user object, our user model, more complicated by having it pull in the roles that are available to a particular user. And then we would then add that to the various endpoints. But in this particular one, it's a fairly simple authorization guard. We first of all created a public key, and all that is we're simply defining that something is public, and that does require the metadata. So we're just saying that an endpoint is public, and again, all of this is covered in the authorization documentation that is included with Nest. So you have all of this access to this already. So we have our public metadata, we're setting the true, and then over here in the auth guard, we go ahead and if something is public, we go ahead and let it through. So that way we can define public endpoints. Otherwise, we're going to take the request. We're going to get the token from the request. We're going to take apart that token, that JWT token, and if it's not right, then we're going to throw unauthorized. And we have this extract token from header right here, which does that. Now, this almost all of this code kind of already exists on, again, the nestJs website, so it's really handy, and that particular piece is kind of nice. What wasn't well documented is this SQLize piece. Again, I was able to use a really good resource for that, and ChatGPT actually was kind of handy for that as well. So I definitely think that those can be some handy resources. But let's continue. I'm going to go ahead and start working on the journal pieces. So each individual user can create a journal, and that journal is going to consist of the journal entry, export class. It's going to be the journal controller. It will have all of these pieces, but let's mimic this. And it's trying to help me out here. So we're going to take our constructor. It's not going to be user service. It's going to be journal service. And we'll take you journal service when we create it, which we haven't yet. Now, I don't think we need user for this one, but we can. There's nothing to register for, but we are going to have it do a get. We'll do an at get, and it's just going to be the base get. It's not public, so knowing that, let's go ahead and we need to put in our guard that makes sure that it is user authorized. So let's go ahead and grab that. Yeah, use guard, auth guard. And we'll correct all of that in a moment. It's not public. It is going to resend back an HTTP status code of OK if it's correct, and then let's do a get all. I guess we could say find all. Get, yeah, but we can just call it just straight get all. There's no body for this particular one. And what it's going to return is a promise of, call them promise of journals, a journal array. Yep. And more than likely we're going to keep it just how we do the others. We're going to return this dot journal service dot get all. So we've saved that. It's corrected corrected all of that for us, and now let's do all of the imports. WebStorm is nice for that. Insert, and we don't have a journal class yet. We do have this, and that cleaned up all of our code for us. So here's our journal. So this gets us all, and we'll just leave it at that for now. Let's go ahead and create our model based upon what we've done over here. So we're going to export class journal. And we'll probably actually make, yeah, this is the actual class that will return. So let's do an export class journal entry. And why we're going to return a separate class rather than the straight journal is because I'm probably going to want to store some additional things inside the journal. And when I send it back, I'm going to want to clean it up. So like, I don't want to include the person's user ID in the journal entry. I think that'll pretty much be about it. But we do have all of our journal entry pieces kind of already documented out. So let's take a quick look at what that journal is supposed to look like when we come over here. We are going to want the journal entry to include the journal entry ID, and we may actually walk that back. So let's create a simple journal. It's going to extend model and extends model, and it's going to be journal. And down here we're going to do, and actually it's going to be almost similar. So let's grab that, put you here. You're going to be a journal ID. We want to attach this potentially to a trade, but we don't have to. But we do want a user ID. So it's going to be at column, and that's perfectly fine. Now we could do a one-to-many, but I don't know if I feel like tying that in just yet. So there's our column for our string, that column, and we're going to potentially allow a trade ID, which is also going to be a string. And then finally we have the journal entry. Let's do at column, and yeah, let's call it journal entry. And let's do a special data type here. So let's grab you and do a parentheses here. We should probably also adjust the user ID up here. So the type is going to be a UUID. We won't allow for false, and it is not the primary key. The trade ID will also be of a type UUID. No default value, and we will allow null. So we don't actually have to say that specifically. So that should be fine. Let's clean up our commas. It will for us anyway. For the journal entry, I'm actually going to make it a data types of text, though it might allow for blob. Let's see if we have text. We do. So you're going to be a text. There is no default value, no primary key for this column, and we do allow null. I really hope people don't put in null, but there's nothing we can do to really stop that. And then lastly, we have our date. So let's create our column here, and let's just do the date. And I imagine we need to do you okay with that? Looks like you are, but let's still add in some additional column flavor, if you will. Allow null is false. Unique validate. In this particular instance, we want to probably autofill it with the date and time. So let's do data types, date. Yeah, date. And just like we did over here, before we create, we'll go ahead and have it automatically create that. But there might actually be an easier way. So let's take a look at the SQLized documentation and see if there is a way to automatically, let's do SQLize date time autofill. Let's try that. Yeah, auto generated timestamps. We're not going to disable it, so it's going to create it anyway. I guess we really could just leave it as created as and let that handle it. Allow null false default value. Yeah, there it is. We would use the default value of SQLize now. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's import. And it doesn't like that. I think I ran into this before. I think I need to say just now. And then bring this in from SQLize. Yeah. Yep. So data types now. Let's bring in our model from SQLize TypeScript. And let's fix everything by hitting Control Save. So there is our journal model. We're not using it yet, but it's based upon what we've documented before. Nothing spectacular about it or anything along those lines. But here's our journal model. Now our module is going to be similar to the user module. We're not bringing in anything unusual here. So we pretty much can just copy and modify as needed. So we'll paste in that and SQLize model 4. And we're going to say journal. And we don't have a journal service yet, but we will. So journal service and journal controller. And then finally, we will call you the journal module. So we'll save that. We're still missing a few things. Let's go ahead and import them. There's our model. And our service, our controller, we do have. We just haven't done the service yet. So there's this. Let's go ahead and a journal entry. I am unsure. Do we actually want to return a full journal thing? I don't know if I feel that strongly about it. Yeah, let's just return a full journal entry, including the user ID. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Let's save you. Thank you, ESLint, for cleaning that up for us. And then we have our service that we need to create and our entry model. Now, again, this is similar to what I've done before with Nest. Is I like to use these models to kind of control what the input is going to be. So similar to this, what is going to happen when a person submits a journal entry is literally just the entry itself. There's nothing special about it. It's just going to be the entry itself, which is going to be a string. So someone wants to blog that this is how I felt today, so forth and so on. And we're going to make sure that it's not empty, and that's it. Now, we do need to create a modification for updates, and updates are going to need to include the are going to need to include the journal ID, but we haven't done that particular endpoint yet. So for right now, for a straight journal entry, this is what we have. Let's save and clean you up. And we have our validator in here, and so all that's good. And the only thing we now need to do, well, not the only thing, one of the things that's left is to create our journal service. And it's going to be, again, similar to what we've done before. We can kind of keep it pretty similar. We'll grab this beginning part. It is injectable, and it's going to be called the journal service. We'll create our constructor in here. No super props. Nope, none of that. But in our constructor, we do want to add an inject model, and the model we're going to use is journal. Now we then are going to have a private read-only. We'll call it journal, and it's going to be a type of journal. And this makes me think that what I should probably do is, let's see, I just called you journal, not journal model, is that I should come over here and, oh, I did. I just called you user. Cool. So then in our service, we should probably keep it similar. We should say journal model. That way we kind of keep it uniform. And then we don't need a JWT service because we're not doing any of that. And this is our base constructor. So now let's go ahead and create our first. Yeah, no, this is great. This is really helpful. Thank you to the AI systems that are helping, and we do want to create a journal entry, but not yet. We actually want to do a get all. We don't have any properties or parameters, and we're returning a promise, an array of journals. And we're going to put this in another try or catch loop. And we just want to catch in case something goes wrong. And we'll throw a bad request at this particular point. We don't have to really show anything, but let's do a bad request. I can't imagine. Well, hold on. Let's take a look. What other potential exceptions would be better for this nestJs exception? Exceptions filter. Let's take a look at what exceptions. Not found, bad request. Gone exception, unsupported internal server error. Yeah, the only reason that I could think that this would fail is there's some type of internal service error. So let's go ahead and add that exception in here. What we're going to do is we're going to say const. I guess we should get the user ID first. And again, this is where the documentation comes in really handy. So we are going to get we do have the request. So hold on a second. It looks like I need to make a modification up here. It's going to use the guard. So that means we need to include the request here. Let's show context actions. What are you grumpy about? Get use guard. Nope, that should be right. Oh, it's defined but never used. And then request. Now what are you grumpy about? It does have an implied of any, but what are you grumpy about? Add missing new operator to call. I don't think we do. I don't think we do. Now, again, I'm just reading off of the documentation from what they say, and they don't have it recorded in here. But it looks like what I should do is grab request and put it up here. And then, there we go. That was the problem. All right, where was I? So we're going to pass along the request to the journal entry. We'll have the request. It's going to accept any. And we need to actually get that information back. And I don't know what that looks like yet. So let's take a look and see what the request actually looks like. And we should return something. Return journal. We'll return an array of new journals. We're not doing anything with the journal model yet. Let's make sure that you work. And finally, let's make sure that you work. Let's import our context actions, import everything, and then finally we have to go to our app module and add it in here. So we have our user module and the journal module. Cool. So that's all cleaned up. Looks like there's an error though. What are you? Nope, I guess you're not. I guess there is no error. I was wrong. Let's go ahead and run it and see what we are going to break. Table annotation is missing on class journal. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Journal module. Oh, I know what I'm missing. Nope. We have you here. That's right. Table notation? Let's take a look. User module. Let's open up our user model. Put it side by side. I am missing the words at table. And I need to import you, column, model, table, and oh yeah, did I ever implement the before date? No, I didn't need to. It's fine. Cool. So now when we come back to our terminal, we created everything here like we wanted to. Let's go ahead and test everything. We have our Insomnia tool here. I like Insomnia. Some people prefer Postman. So we have our request here. Let's also pull out data grip. So we have our table. Let's refresh. There's our journals table. There it is. Journal ID, user ID, trade ID. date and created. So there's all of that. Here's our users. I think I have one here, but I don't remember what the password is. So let's go ahead and delete this row. And let's create a new user. So user, and let's do create. We'll do our JSON over here, and we'll just create a temporary, just a quick email test@test.com, and we'll create the password, which is going to be password. It's a terrible password. Send. Looks like I forgot something. Is it user create? Why don't I remember these things? Let's see, user controllers, user, oh, it's register, not create. User register. Send. And there's our user. We have this token right here. We're going to grab that. And let's go ahead and save you somewhere. And then when we do a new request, let's do a new one where we create a journal entry. New request. They're all new requests. Let's do, all journals for user. And auth. Let's do a basic auth. Bearer token. There it is. There's nothing in the body, but let's do http://localhost/journal. Let's make sure that that's what we put in for the controller. Yeah, journal. Let's send. I get an authorized, which I guess is technically right. But let's look at how I should create that token. Let's go back over to the documentation. I think I'm supposed to say access token. Yeah, it's supposed to be no, I'm sorry, authorization bearer. So authorization bearer. Let's look at headers token. Prefix. Let's look at the headers and see what we sent back. Let's shrink you down a little bit. Preview headers. Let's see. I'm not as good as this as I should be. This is an authorization. I guess this is. Okay. No. API key auth. Hold on a second. I need to move this to another screen. Yeah, bearer token. Let's go to headers. Get. Let's look at how insomnia add bearer token. Yep. Token. Bearer. And yeah, I guess we should just be able to do bearer. Let's see what we see. Send. Okay, so then let's take a look and see what our auth guard is grabbing. let's see here. We have the request token extract from header. Yes. Let's put a console.log request here. And open up our terminal and send the request. Yep, there it is, authorization bearer. So that's right. So let's come back over here to our auth guard. Let's move you down a little bit. Type in token. So let's see what we have. Return our console.log our type. And let's console.log the token. And let's take a look. Let's send. So it looks like we found our bearer token. That is correct. That looks good. So there's nothing wrong on that level. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Let's take a look. Now I do have it behaving a little differently than what they had in the documentation. So let's close all the tabs in this group, close all the tabs in this group, and let's look at that. Now in the documentation, what they did was they actually passed in the secret. Now I'm not, but let's go ahead and try that. Maybe that's where I'm the one who's messing up here. And the secret that I want to use is process.environmental. Now we use the same thing in app modules, I believe. Yes, JWT secret. JWT secret. Now let's see if that is where I messed up. And it's kind of silly that I would need to do that. Then I'm still getting unauthorized. So let's take a look at this. Let's do this console.log token and send again. We have it. So there's a valid token, and the verify asynchronous is failing. So I'm a little unsure about why our token is failing. Let's see. Let's make sure that other things are working. Let's do a console.log of the process.environmental.jwt secret. Just to make sure that I'm not going crazy, which I mean I probably am. Nope, there is our secret. So it looks like it's failing to do the authentication that is in the documentation. Git journal controller. There's an auth guard. Get all. And yeah, unauthorized. Let's take a look at the auth guard and see what is going on. Try catch e.message. Let's see if this gives us any more insight. Oh, the JWT expired. So that's on me. That's much more helpful. And that means that we need to come back over here to our user service. And instead of saying 60 seconds, oh yes, there's a few things we need to do. So let's create a longer JWT token than 60 seconds. And I believe I do that here in the module. Yep, see, expires in 60 seconds. Why would you do that? So let's do 1 day. Let's look for that. Where is the documentation on sign options? Let's pull it up and see. JWT sign options. Let's look for it on the page. No, there's nothing here. Oh, there it is. Expires in 2 days, 1 day, 7 hours. Let's do 2 hours. Expires in 2. Is that right? It's 2H. So expires in 2H. Awesome. So let's destroy that user again. And there are a couple things I want to check because it looks like it's generally working, but we'll double check. So we delete the row. We'll come back over to here. We'll create the user again. And yep, this is what I was checking for. I wanted to make sure that it properly created the user ID, and it does. So now under my user service, I can get rid of this console log. And here in my journal service, I now have this proper token that will last for 2 hours. We come back over here to the bearer. We put in our new token, and we hit send. Now, I don't know why we have any journal IDs, but it looks like we have the full request. And what we can do is we just said random new journal. We didn't even do anything with it. Const user ID is going to be equal to request.user.user ID. And I guess we could make you optional. If there's no user ID, we should throw an error here. This is just me overly compensating. I don't think we really need to, but we'll just throw one anyway. Throw new unauthorized exception, invalid user ID. So then we have our request, and so now we have to do the find all. So now we're going to say journal model const, and in this particular return we can just say return return.journal model, and I believe it's just going to be find all for SQLize. Yep, I believe it's just find all. Yeah, dot what? Oh yeah, nope. Return journal model dot find all, and we'll do similar to what we've done in user service, where my where is here. Yep, curly bracket where public journal service. There it is. Where user ID is equal to user ID. And it's going to be this journal model. So let's do a send real quick to make sure that works. And they don't have any journal entries. Cool. Let's do one other thing. Let's create one real quick. Let me answer this question. Give me 1 second. Let's do the add an entry, journal entry endpoint. So we're still going to use an auth guard. We're going to be an at post. Journal entry, we'll do an add. And we'll call it create. We're still going to have it do this. And I guess we do an at body. I'm not a master of this at all. Yeah. And the body's going to be called journal entry. Body. Hang on a second. Body. Oh, it's parentheses. Yeah. Parentheses. Journal entry. Journal entry. And I don't think it returned anything. I guess. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to return at this particular point. Let's add in our necessary pieces, insert them, and save everything. And then we're going to do return this dot journal service dot create, and what we're going to pass in is the request and the journal entry. Come back over here to our service. Just grab you just in case. And now hold on a second. It occurs to me that this should be called a proper request. What are we returning here? Verify payload request. Type request. Yep. And it's not any of it's of a type request. I was just thinking about that. And let's come back over here to our journal service. Let's create. Yeah, no, that's almost exactly what I was going to create. Let's see how it does. Almost. We're going to have it accept a request of type request. And a journal entry of type journal entry. And you're not actually going to return anything. I guess we could just return an OK. Let's come up here and request you, change you to proper request. I guess we're going to have to leave you as any. Otherwise, we won't be able to find you. Sad face. Sad face. Come back over to here. We are going to try to create a new journal. New entry is going to be equal to new journal. Because I have a massive screen. That's why. It's absolutely massive. I have a 34-inch screen. That's why it's so wide. I can try to shrink it down a little bit. Would that be better? Stretch it on. Let's see if I can. I think I can. I'm not the master of this on OBS. I can just capture the whole. I'm trying to capture the whole screen so that I can tab back and forth between them. But let's see. Nope. Nope. Yeah, I can stretch there. Yeah. I don't know if I can stretch it much. Yeah, I think it's at the max size that it's going to let me go. I can always try to change around a few things, but it's still going to be super wide. Does it look a little too wide on your screen? Let me know. Create new journal. And we want to pass in column journal entry. Let me know. We're going to pass in journal entry. It's going to be journal entry.entry. And user ID. Yeah, let me know if it's too wide for your screen, and I'll go ahead and try to figure out how to make that work. I have a massive screen, and I tried to zoom in a bit, but I can also zoom out a bit if it's too wide for people. User ID, and we really could just say that. Let's stop you right here if we can't find the user ID. Fix with prettier. We have our new entry, and then we want to do we'll do just like we've done on the other journal entry, and we'll say const saved, and we can just return it. We can just return okay. There's nothing to really throw. I wonder if we can return okay. Let's just save it for now. New journal entry dot save. Sure. Let's go ahead and test out our new endpoint. So we have create, and on the controller we have create, which we call add. So let's add a new HTTP request. It's not going to be a get. It's going to be a post. Add new journal entry. The body is going to consist of JSON. I'll call it, I think, entry is what I called it. Test journal entry, and authorization is going to be bearer token again. We have it for 2 hours. So here's our token. There's our JSON entry. Let's double check a few things before we move forward with that. Journal entry string. Cool. Let's send. I need to actually pick the URL. Journal/add send. Did it expire again? Hold on. I don't think it expired. That's wrong. Send. No, it's me. I'm still using the wrong bearer token. Let's grab you and come over here to the journal entries. Delete you and then hit send. No response. I should probably again send some type of request okay, but we can double check to make sure that it works by doing a send. Here's our journal entry, test journal entry. That worked. We have the date that it was created, the user ID that it's attached to, and the journal ID. So it looks like our create endpoint worked. I should take a look at how nestJs returns just a simple OK. I don't want to send an error code. I just want to send an OK. Can can we just say that? Throw new exception. We already say that. That's not helpful. I'm already sending OK. Throw new exception. I don't want to throw an exception. I just want to return OK. And I guess we could return created. Return. Looks like we can do this. Yeah, I guess we can. So let's go ahead and do that. Where is my entry? Here it is. Journal service. If everything works out, then return import response refactor. No, we want to import status codes, and we're just sending back an OK. Yeah, no, that looks okay. Let's see what happens if we do another journal entry in Insomnia. Send status code 200. Sent an OK. Yeah, yep, that works. So we have it so that it adds journal entries now. There's 2 test journal entries. We don't have a trade ID that we're attaching to it at this particular point, but we do have our journal entry. We have our user endpoint created with JWT. The next piece I'm going to start working on is, according to the documentation that I wrote down, is the trade and an option. So again, this is just kind of a sample application for people who are kind of diving in and kind of building their first application. I chose nestJs, and this is just like some of the thought processes that you might want to think through and go through. I'm trying to document everything that I use. I'm thinking that I forgot something, though, for some reason. I feel like I've forgotten something. No, metadata, you're all good. I'm using the auth guards, bcrypt. I think, nope, I've already said, did I document, let's see, did I document that I'm using JWT? I didn't. I didn't document that I'm using JWT. Class dot, let's come back over to here. Let's add that in. And I'm just adding in all of the things that I'm using so that, again, someone else coming along years from now or months from now can kind of look at all the pieces that I've used and, you know, perhaps use it as kind of a guide. And maybe I'll write some articles on this. JSON Web Token NPM. Just because I think that, yeah, there's ChatGPT is great now, but, you know, still an article or two might not be bad. So I've added in JWT. There's my next backend. There's my database structure. Let's go ahead and clean up one more database structure. So we'll copy you. And we'll create our trade, because that's one of the tables that we'll be creating next. It's going to have a trade ID. It's going to have a user ID. We'll attach an option to it, an option ID. We'll do a quantity, and then we'll do a buy price. This is going to be a type of decimal. Buy price, sell price, decimal. And maybe someone will actually take this and kind of run with it. They'll go be able to, by date, they'll be able to run with it. Again, one of the things that I do is I dabble in the selling and buying of US stock options. And it's often recommended that you have some type of like trade journal that you use to kind of track everything down. So this is just me attempting to create my own. There are a bunch of them that are out there that are a little bit more costly, but they do a lot of functionality, have a lot of functionality in it. But I just decided to kind of build my own as a programmer, and I think it's a good challenge. And maybe someone will be like, I like it, and they would want to use it too. So next time or Friday, we'll sit down and build in all those pieces for the trade and an option. nestJs has been pretty nice. There are some things that aren't as well documented that I liked, but I was able to figure out most of it. The bearer tokens, using CptWoozle has been pretty easy and handy. Let's take a quick look over here at data grip. So we have our columns here. There's our entries with our user ID and a trade ID. So it's been pretty handy and useful for that. All right. Today's show was pretty short. Let's go ahead while I'm in here and do a quick cleanup and make sure I didn't leave any console logs anywhere or debuggers. I didn't. Cool. So I'm going to put this up on my GitHub, and I'm going to go ahead and update my Twitch so that people know the new project that I'm working on. Yeah. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on Friday. I'm going to change my times. I find if I go, I think people lose interest after a couple of hours. So I'll see you on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll put my schedule up on my Twitch and YouTube so people can read it if they want. Again, thank you for tuning in, and I hope everyone has